I just spent 4 months living in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and honestly, I loved it. But there are a few things that I wish I knew before going. Stuff that would have saved me a ton of time, money, and headaches. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 17 things that I wish I knew before coming to Argentina. So the first few tips are things that I wish I knew upon arrival into Argentina. If you have the option, try and fly into George Newberry instead of EZE. The reason is, EZE is about 45 minutes away from downtown Buenos Aires, and honestly, it'll probably be even longer for you as there's always a ton of traffic, and depending what time your flight comes in, you're going to be stuck in that. Whereas George Newberry is right downtown, and it's a quick drive to get to wherever you need to go. That said, most of the flights that come into George Newberry are regional flights from either Brazil or Paraguay or Chile or any local cities. So you're probably not going to be able to find a flight into George Newberry, but if it's an option, definitely choose it. Tip number 2 is about Ubers. And honestly, they're not very readily available in Buenos Aires. It's probably the worst city that I've ever experienced for Ubers. There's not a whole lot around. I did some research here, and it's because they kind of operate in a gray zone, so not a lot of locals drive for them, but I definitely found the wait times to be long, especially at the airport. I waited about an hour for an Uber to show up at the airport and get me to where I needed to go. So to avoid this, one of the more popular ride-sharing apps in Argentina is Cabify. I found their wait times to be a lot quicker, so make sure you download that before going there. I personally never took a cab just because cabs are a little sketchy in Latin America, but do your research here and you might find a company that is also safe to go with. Tip number 3 is to avoid flying into EZE during rush hour. I kind of mentioned this already, but the reason is you're going to end up sitting in traffic for a while to get to your Airbnb in Buenos Aires. So try and find flights that lands into EZE during times that the traffic's not very busy. Now, the next few tips are about money there. And tip number 4 is to bring a lot of USD with you to Argentina. The reason is it's very hard to get your hands on actual USD cash when you're in Argentina. And the exchange rate for cash is a lot better than the one you'll get through like the bank. There's what's called the blue rate down there, which is kind of illegal, but a lot of people use it, and it does give you a much more favorable exchange rate. That said, Argentina reduced a lot of its restrictions recently on its currency, and these restrictions were what caused the blue rate to even exist. So double check the official rate and the blue rate before you go to Argentina, as it may no longer be worth it to even risk exchanging your money at the blue rate. But it's definitely worth it to bring some cash just to give you that option, especially if you're staying for a long period of time. Tip number 5 is to use Western Unions. If you ever need to transfer cash from your bank account in Europe or North America or wherever you're coming from, Western Union gives you a much better exchange rate than a local ATM. They offer a rate in between the blue rate and the official rate, where the ATM is going to give you it at the official rate. And since I used Western Union for the 4 months that I was in Argentina, I made at least a couple $1,000s on my exchange rate over the period of time that I was there exchanging money. Tip number 6, I'm kind of running out of hands here, is that Argentina isn't as cheap as it used to be. If you ask ChatGPT or Google Gemini, or even read any blog that's a few years old about the cheapest cities in Latin America, Buenos Aires will be at the top of its list. However, that's no longer the case. It's definitely still cheaper than North America, but it's definitely not the cheapest country that you can go to. So just a heads up there, if you're expecting to live for pennies on the dollar, it's no longer a place that you can do that. If you want to know more about this and exactly how expensive it is, check out this video right here as I talk about exactly that, but it's definitely something you need to be aware of. Tip number 7 is that neighborhoods are less dangerous here. So unlike most of Latin America, where you need to be very selective with the neighborhoods that you live in, you can let your guard down a bit here. If you're wanting to live for cheap and be on a budget, you can go outside of the popular neighborhoods and find a neighborhood that is less expensive. There are still a few places that you can't go in Argentina, Buenos Aires specifically, and you definitely need to be aware of that. So make sure the neighborhood that you do select is half decent, but for the most part, the neighborhoods are safe and have good infrastructure. One thing you do need to watch out for when you're in Argentina though is motocoros, which are guys on motorcycles that will come up and steal your phone if you're talking like this on the phone. I didn't run into this too much. It is something that happens, but I was vlogging on the street and was fine. So take that for what it is worth, but just something to be aware of that you need to watch out for this. The next few tips are on infrastructure. So tip number 8 is that water is potable, at least kind of. I'm used to living in Latin America and not being able to drink the water, but if you do a Google search, you'll see that you can drink the water in Argentina. That said, it can still upset your stomach as a traveler due to the mineral contents in it. And there's a lot of old buildings in Buenos Aires, and some of them use old pipes. So take that for what it's worth. I never drank it. I didn't feel comfortable drinking it, but it's your own call to make. Tip number 9 is that phone plans suck down in Argentina. They're fine if you're a local, but if you're a nomad, you can't get a local phone plan. And the only phone plans that you can get have very little data. So if you're there for a week, it's fine for you. But if you're there for months on end, like I was, they don't really work for you, as you're either going to be constantly topping up, spending a fortune and wasting a lot of time doing so, or you're going to have to be stuck using your local phone plan. So just something to keep in mind, the phone plans here kind of suck. Tip number 10 is that public transit is actually usable here. To be honest, the first few months, I never used the public transit in Argentina because I was concerned that it was going to be like the rest of Latin America and be unsafe. However, my uncle came to visit me and he was big into the public transit because he's from Toronto, and he got me into using it. And after he left, I used it pretty well every single day. It's very cheap, it's very convenient, and I felt safe on it. I never had any issues, so definitely don't count it out. You can use it, and if it were me, I would use it because it can get you anywhere in the city and cost you only a few bucks. It'll make your experience of the city a lot better. If you want to use the public transit, go to a local convenience store and get what's called a Useable card. It's a blue card. When I was there, it cost me about 10,000 ARS. Then when you go to the subway or the train station, you can load it at one of the booths that they have. You give them a few bucks in cash and then scan your card to their reader and they load it. And then after that, you just tap it before you get on the bus or the train or the subway. And then when you get off, and it works great. Tip number 11 is that laundromats are non-existent. The whole time I was there, I never seen one laundromat. What you do instead is you drop your laundry off at a lavandero, it's called, and it's like a full service laundry place. So they'll wash, dry, iron, and fold your laundry, and then you come back like a day or two later and pick it up. And it's actually very convenient when you're there, but it's definitely something that I never experienced before, and it was kind of a cool service that I could get. Tip number 12 is to get AC in your apartment. It gets really hot in Argentina during the summer months, so you definitely want to make sure that you have an AC unit in your Airbnb, as if you don't have one, you're going to be uncomfortable during the day and you're not going to be able to sleep without it. So it's definitely something you want to make sure that you have in your accommodations. Now, a few tips in regards to their culture. Tip number 13 is that Argentinians eat very late. If you go to a restaurant at a reasonable hour, nobody's going to be there. The restaurant will be completely empty. And then when you go to leave around 9 o'clock, it will start to fill up and you'll be leaving when everyone else is arriving. I honestly found this kind of nice because I never had to reserve a table, but it does make you feel like a restaurant's not any good, and then it actually is a good restaurant, just nobody showed up yet. The same goes for bars. Nobody really shows up to a bar until 11 p.m. They stay up very late, so if you're wanting to party, you're definitely going to have to write off the next day, as you're going to be sleeping in. Tip number 14 is to respect their culture. Honestly, the first few weeks to a month that I was in Argentina, I thought the locals fucking hated me. They were kind of rude. They never went out of their way to make me feel welcome, and they definitely weren't very patient with my broken Spanish. However, after a few weeks, this changed, as one, I definitely put in more of an effort to speak Spanish, and then that helped a lot. And then the other thing was, when I did meet a local, I put an effort to try and get to know their culture and understand their way of life. And this went a long way. A lot of people were a lot more welcome to me being there. And honestly, when I went to leave, they were very into showing me their local stuff, like dulce de leche or empanadas or anything like that. You just got to put in an effort to show that you care, and they'll start to warm up to you pretty quickly. Speaking of Spanish, tip number 15 is that Spanish is not easy here. My Spanish isn't great, and even if you are fluent in Spanish, you might struggle a bit here, as they have a lot of slang. There's a lot of different words that they use here. For instance, the word "tú" that you normally use in all of Latin America is "vos" down in Argentina, and just other things like this make it hard to speak Spanish. You can definitely do it, but you might have a hard time understanding the locals' Spanish in Argentina. Tip number 16 is that Argentina is a lot more like Europe than it is Latin America. I got a comment on my video the other day saying that Argentina is more like a piece of Europe that has been placed in Latin America. And honestly, that is as true as it can get. When you're in Argentina, yeah, there is some Latin America vibe to it, but the vibe that you get there is a lot more European. All the buildings, all the cities, they're all very European, and you're gonna feel like you're in Europe versus Latin America. Tip number 17 is actually foods to try. So when you're there, you definitely wanna try dulce de leche. Mate is a drink that they're really into there, and they're very keen on you trying it when you go there. Empanadas are another good one. These are like a massive pierogi, basically. Like they're breaded with a ton of filling that can be a variety of different things. Like you can get beef or chicken or even jam and peanut butter. And then obviously make sure you're eating their steak and trying their local wine, as both live up to their name. Now, if you're wanting to see how Argentina stacks up to Panama, then definitely check out this video right here as it talks about just that. And don't forget to click subscribe.